As Rachel said, I'm going to talk about the science of stewardship, particularly in some of the work that I've been involved in and some of my other colleagues here at the New York City Urban Field Station. To set the stage, I'm just going to offer a definition of what stewardship is. We often talk about it as very broadly as taking care of the local environment. And there can be a number of different stewardship actions that are this aspect of care. It can be conservation, management, monitoring, education, advocacy, and also transformation in terms of transforming food systems, transforming waste systems, and the like. If we're focusing in on tree stewardship and thinking about tree stewardship actions on the ground, that really becomes management and monitoring. And so as Rachel was talking about planting trees, and then what comes next is taking care of those trees through mulching, pruning, watering, and weeding. And another aspect is monitoring those trees, another act of stewardship. So finding where trees are located, mapping them, identifying the species, measuring DBH and condition of trees. And a lot of my research is thinking about what's the role of civil society in stewardship. And these are some broad questions I often ask myself when thinking about my research. Who's participating? How are they participating? Where on the landscape are they participating? And then what is their effect on the social ecological system? So if we're thinking about the act of stewardship, it can be something that an individual does, a group, or also individuals and groups can form a network or a broader network on the landscape acting in acts of stewardship. And then they also, together, individuals, networks, and groups can transform the social ecological system. So thinking about what are the social effects of stewardship and what are the ecological effects of stewardship. And I'm going to highlight at each of these scales, individual, group, network, and social ecological system, some of the work that we've done so far. With individuals, what individuals engaged in stewardship might come out and engage in attending an event like a tree planting event, a mulch fest day, a general stewardship day, weeding. They might also go out on their own and help take care of the environment. It might be someone's backyard, community park, street trees, and also might work in groups with nonprofits, work as just a team of neighbors. So there's different ways that individuals can become involved in stewardship. And I'll highlight a couple of research projects we've done to look at what motivates individuals to participate in stewardship. The first is looking at the Million Trees Project here in New York City, where the New York City Parks worked with New York Restoration Project to engage volunteers to plant trees across New York City. And my colleague Erica Svensson, along with other researchers, went out during these tree planting days and asked the volunteers questions. Why did you come out to the tree planting today? And found their motivations were threefold. They were interested in taking care of where they live. They held long-term values as trees, live for a long time, take a long time to grow. And then also they came out because it was fun or it was enjoyable. We were then interested in understanding would motivations differ if it was someone coming out to monitor trees. And so New York City Parks also held a tree census in 2015 called Trees Count, where they involved more than 2,000 volunteers to come out and map the street trees of New York City. And volunteers ended up mapping more than a third of 666,000 street trees in the city. They recorded species, DBH, condition of tree, location, and a few other metrics. And what we found is that these monitors coming out to monitor and map trees held similar values to those volunteers that came out to engage in tree planting, but they also held other motivations too. Some of those were coming out to socialize, wanting to be outdoors, There was an incentive offered this time, so responding to an incentive, having past experience with previous tree monitoring and tree censuses, and also many were interested in learning tree ID, how to identify trees, learning about the role of trees and the ecosystem services they provide to the city, and then finally interested in exploring the city. So not just having an interest in contributing to where they live, but also wanting to monitor and experience other parts of the city as well. Now, as I mentioned before, individuals form groups, and groups then form networks, and together these groups and networks can also shape broader outcomes and environmental governance in cities and communities. And one way our research has looked at this is through the Stewardship Mapping and Assessment Project, or StewMap, which is a project that began in New York City in 2007. It's now in more than 12 cities, regions, and landscapes across the U.S. and internationally. And what it does is send a survey out to civic groups to understand how are they working on stewarding the local environment, where are they working, why are they working, and how are they working in partnership with other organizations. And the results are an organizational database, a map of where groups work, and also a social network map of how they're working together. So here's some results for New York City's most recent StewMap survey in 2017. And I'll highlight here are these 6 different types of actions again: management, education, advocacy, conservation, monitoring, and transformation. Management is the most common action: direct management like planting activities, taking care of trees, taking care of other aspects of the environment. But monitoring is also another way of stewardship, and we see that some groups are engaging in this action already, and that there's the potential for more stewardship groups to become involved in monitoring the local environment. I wanted to highlight, I've been talking about how stewards can act as individuals and come out for planting days and going out and monitoring trees, but also as these groups form and work together, they are part of a larger environmental governance network. This diagram here is showing how different civic groups in New York City are working together and in collaboration with government agencies, businesses, and schools. The number of dots you see on the diagram that are blue are all of the civic groups that are working, and the other colors, green for government, orange for business, and yellow for schools. I mentioned before that some groups are already engaging in monitoring the local environment, but even beyond engaging in monitoring, 44% of groups surveyed were collecting some sort of data. It might just be on the activities and the actions that group was taking, but also it was on going out and collecting tree data, collecting other biophysical data about the environment. Just want to highlight the role that civic groups and individuals can play in data collection. And to that end, when we asked groups, what they thought their outcomes of their work were, they, though this diagram is a little challenging to see, most of the groups strongly agreed that they were able to affect both social and environmental outcomes, including improving plants and habitat quality. And that goes to this, what is the larger effect of what these stewardship actions are having on the social ecological system? With the StewMap survey, we were able to ask groups what their perceived impact was, but we can also collect biophysical data. And with respect to trees, we can look at what's the amount and the distribution of trees, and we can also look at what's the quality of the resource, how healthy are these trees. I'm now going to turn it over to Lauren Marshall for a poll, but after that, Rich Hallett will continue talking about this aspect of tree health monitoring.